Hey there, this is a recording on how to measure trees. So I am picking a couple of different trees to choose from. That way we can look at it together. I think the most important thing to think about before you use the software to measure trees is one, as a reminder, we only recommend this for outside wraps, not for inside wraps, because there's no way to tell from the photo how many branches there are on the back side of the tree, and it could be much denser on the back than it is on the front. Number two, if you are getting a photo from anywhere, how current is that photo? A lot of times landscaping has changed over time. So some of the things you're seeing in the photo may no longer be there. Or there may be a tree and that tree has grown 10 feet and the photo is 2 years old. So just something to keep in mind. Is the photo current? Is what you're seeing accurate? And only use this for outside wraps. So let's get started. We'll go ahead and start with the photo we've used before. We're going to put in a known length that is in the same depth of the photo as the tree. So in this case, we picked the driveway. That's the easiest thing to do. It's in line with the tree here. So we're just making sure that it goes from one end of the driveway to the other end of the driveway, essentially. Just like that. So our known length is there. It's the same depth as the tree. We're ready to measure. This is a deciduous tree, so we're going to use two calculators for that. We're going to use the deciduous tree calculator and the round pillar calculator. So first, let's get started with the deciduous tree calculator. So we'll just do a single light. I just clicked C9, so it doesn't matter what color we use, really. I usually just like to use a color that I'm not going to use otherwise. I'll click 12-inch spacing, just so if I already have a lot of stuff added, I don't get it confused, which is why. And then I'm just going to draw a line from top to bottom on just the canopy. So just this portion here. After that, I am looking at my quick estimate. And my quick estimate is telling me that the length of the canopy from here to here is 10 feet. That feels pretty accurate to me. If I were to eyeball that, I would say that is the case. Then I need the width. I'm going to pick a different color for the width. So from here to about right there. And then I'm going to use a different color for the trunk. Now this trunk is really small. If it's less than a foot, it's harder to get like partial feet measurements. But I would approximate that trunk is about 6 inches in width. So we're just going to go with that. So now I'm going to look at this estimate. I have the height of my canopy, which is 10 feet. I have the width of my canopy, which is 6 feet, which now I can use in my calculator for my deciduous tree calculator for the top portion of the tree. So not the trunk, just the top portion. So we said 6 on the width, 10 on the height. The spacing that you want is the layers in between the outside wrap. How close together do you want each layer to be? Imagine creating a spiral around the tree with your lights, going all the way around. I call it lollipopping, but that's how professional installers do it. They go in and out around the tree till they get to the very top, or go from the top to the bottom, whichever method they have depending on the tree type. So I would say for a tree like this, 1 foot would be sufficient for the spacing. This is telling me I have 144.2 feet. So at this point, I can just divide that 144.2 by however many feet long my mini strand lengths are. You'll have to just look at the package of your mini light strands and you'll know how long they are. But generally speaking, 90% of the time they're 24 feet long. So if I divide that by 24, I get 6 strands. Now, I always like to increase my estimates by at least 10%, just in case there's something I'm missing, right? So I would round up 1 strand to 7. But this is telling me right about 6 strands from here to here, but we're going to add 1 more to get to 7, just to be on the safe side. Now we can do the second part, which is the pillar, right? Round pillar calculator, and that's going to be for the trunk. So I'm going to look at what the length of that was again, 5 feet for the trunk from here to the ground. So I'm going to go to calculator. We approximated that the width of that little trunk was about 6 inches, 5 feet in height. Because it's really thin, I'm going to use a much tighter spacing than I would on the canopy. For this type of tree, again, this is a company preference. I would use 4 to 6 inch spacing for that. If I wanted to go tighter, I would use 4-inch spacing. If I wanted to be a little looser, 6-inch spacing. This is telling me 23.6 feet at 4-inch spacing. Basically, I can get away with 1 strand for that trunk. So 1 strand on the bottom, 7 on the top, 8 strands altogether for this if I do 1 foot spacing here and 4-inch here. It's a very thin tree, so that makes perfect sense to me on that bottom strand. That is how I would do the approximation. At that point, since I know what I need for that, when I go to my quick estimate and I'm going to download whatever I have or export it, I can hit undo obviously because I don't want that to show. But when I have all my other stuff, I can go to that quick estimate and I can export it into Excel and I can add a line item for mini lights and put in 7 mini lights at however much you charge for them, because it's not going to show up in your quick estimate because you're calculating it with the calculator instead. You can also copy these results. That way you can copy and paste it into somewhere else. So again, doesn't show up in the final proposal. So if I do the full decoration and I know I need to add on 7 strands because I just calculated that, I'm going to multiply that by however much I charge. So maybe I'm charging, for instance, $30 a strand. That tree is going to be $210. So in my final proposal, I just need to make sure that I am adding in that $210 in the final thing. So if I have something like this, then I'm going to overwrite it, and I'm just going to add that 210 into that 939 number to make sure that I've accounted for it. So that now turns into 1,149, for example, in addition to the other things that are already in the photo. So just wanted to kind of teach you about how that measurement is done. Now, if it is, say, like a palm, that's going to be a little bit different. Palms have a lot of irregular shapes. They kind of are a little bit different. Some palms are royal palms where they're flat on the sides, like this, completely smooth up and down. Some of them have like little leaves coming off the sides that take up a lot more of your mini lights. For something like this, I would recommend using the pillar calculator. A lot of people avoid trying to do fronds if they can because it can look a little bit phallic, I guess. So it's better to just do that trunk unless your client really wants fronds, of course. So to come up with an estimate for this, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to put in what is the width of that tree. Palms are so variable. I would make sure you know what the width of that palm is before you do that, because palms are incredibly difficult to do. But typically speaking, it's going to be somewhere around 18 inches, about 1.5 feet for the palms, right at the bottom. So you can click on that new yardstick and just put 1.5 feet, which is the same thing as the 18 inches, and then do that measurement to go with it. You'll notice in this picture there's a lot of different depths, like it's getting farther and farther and farther and farther away. So you're going to need one of these per tree that you're doing. So we have that in place now. I can go to my C9s, and I'm just going to take a quick measurement from top to bottom to figure out approximately how tall this palm is. I can go to my estimate, and it's saying that palm is right around 21 feet long or tall. So now that I know that, I can go to my calculator. I can use my round pillar. We said we approximated 18 inches for the width of that tree. We'll say 21 feet for the height. And let's say we have 6-inch spacing. all the way up that palm. At that point, it is telling us that if it's 18 inches in width, 21 feet high, 6-inch spacing, that we're going to need 197 feet, 107.9 feet. So at that point, again, you're just dividing it by however many strands that you are going to need and going from there.